Welcome to Smart Creation, the podcast, an invitation to explore the potential of sustainable fashion. Every other Wednesday, Adrian, your host, talks to key players in the fashion industry to discover new products and understand the challenges behind offering more responsible fashion and learn the solution available today. This podcast is brought to you by Première Vision, the leading event organizer for fashion professionals. To find out more, go to www.premierevision.com. Discover and enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to Smart Creation, the podcast. Today, I am very pleased to welcome Daniel Gale. He's the director of Denzel Patrick. Hello, Daniel. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
My very first question is, could you please introduce yourself and come back on your pathway? Where are you from? Where you grew up? What did you do before starting the brand? And everything else. And we'll try to dig into it.
Sure thing. Okay. Well, thank you for having me, first and foremost. So my name, as you said, is Daniel Gale. I'm the director and founder of Denzel Patrick. I'm born and bred in southeast London. My grandparents on my mother's side are Irish and my grandparents on my father's side are Jamaican. So I am ultimately mixed race, and this, which, we'll probably come to later on, is really the founding of Denzel Patrick from a essence and communication and community point of view. It's really what the brand kind of stands for. But in terms of my history, I actually started life as a dancer, which is a very interesting and different start, but that's where we were. And I then, after working for a few years, I found myself obviously wanting to just pursue this dream of mine in fashion. So I worked up. I did the night classes, the day classes, the weekend classes, the internships, and I found myself with a job at Jonathan Saunders many years ago. This is a London-based print designer, and this really was, I guess my baptism is almost the word. It was just the most wonderful experience working for this really energetic and youthful and intense and crazy young brand. Jonathan had huge ambitions, and the studio and anyone involved was really there to be part of that. So I was working with them for 3 or 4 years, and that was really just a wonderful, and it kind of gave me a great understanding of color and print and textiles. That was really Jonathan's kind of forte. And I was lucky enough to spend some time there learning that. From there, I went to work with Victoria Beckham, at the beginning of her, the launch of the brand, I guess, which was again another new and interesting experience working with such a high profile individual, but also at the very, very beginning of the birth of a project. And I was there for 6 years working with Victoria. I worked on both lines. At the time, there was the ready to wear line and then the VVB, kind of sister line, if you like, which was very, very interesting. And, we did lots of great work. We were able to collaborate with lots of different photographers. And again, I was able to use lots of the skills I picked up previously to kind of experiment a little bit on the VVB line, which is where we were kind of permitted to have a bit more fun and experiment, if you like. From there, I took an opportunity in New York. I went to work with 3-1 Philip Lim, which was again another experience, a very different experience. It was New York has a different pace to London, a different energy, which I thrived on, and Philip, at the time, the brand, my role covered the studio direction of both menswear, womenswear, and the accessories. So it was a huge task. Lots of learning. And again, as I'm sure everyone here knows, that the business kind of directives and opportunities are very different in North America when you compare it with, say, Europe and then again with Asia and so on. So it was another sense of how this business of fashion is able to operate. And from there, I came back to London for a few years, and did some consultancies. And then most recently, an opportunity came up with Kenzo in Paris. And of course, trying to tick off the boxes of working across the fashion capitals, I took that opportunity. And I joined the team with Carol and Umberto Lim, who'd been there for some time at that stage. And actually, after my first season with them, which was just wonderful, the creative direction changed, and Felipe Olivier Baptista joined the company. So I then shifted with Felipe and his team, and I worked under Felipe's direction for some time until I started Denzel Patrick. I hope that was concise enough. That's the history so far.
Yeah. So thank you very much for explaining us your pathway. My very first question is, why did you want to start your own brand, and how did you put this together? All your previous experience as a dancer, your experiences as a designer, accompanying one of the best designer of our time. Can you explain us this process of starting this new adventure?
Sure. I guess so. Really, I guess I started. The reason that I started the brand was, I guess I've been working in across those companies I just described to you, and various other kind of freelance and consultancy gigs, which I won't list because we'll be here all day. But I felt like the next step naturally was to try and execute something of my own. The role that I've kind of taken for so many years has been, and I've enjoyed it very much, but it's always been a support role. It's always been to execute the ideas of others, which it's been thrilling, and I've taken so much from. But it really felt, I guess, obviously, we're in almost in a post-pandemic moment now, but for sure, when this moment came about, I had just kind of stepped down from my position at Kenzo, and so obviously was in a reflective headspace, and then we went into the initial lockdown, so I just had time and space to do it, and the ideas just were bubbling to the surface, and I kind of started workshopping and kind of putting things together, and it became very clear. And the interesting thing is, I don't know, I do wonder if we didn't experience this awful pandemic, if things would have worked out differently, because there may have been other things that would have jumped in the way, or kind of would have taken me on a different pathway. But essentially, for the first time in 15 years, I had the space, both physically and mentally, to kind of allow all those ideas to surface and bubble. And they really very, very quickly started to formulate. And so, started that process. And then, of course, I can't ignore what I'd learned over the 15 years, both in terms of, building collections, ideas, what my point of view is, what I want to say, but also, things that I didn't always think were done correctly, and things that I'd always said to myself, if I ever have my own business, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to do it differently. So it was time to kind of prove that to myself, if you like, and really, and sort of say to myself, okay, in front of me is a blank sheet of paper. I'm going to start this from the top, both creatively and in terms of how we structure things, how we put things in place, the pace at which we work, and the speed at which we work. And that was really something, again, all of managing teams, managing teams of up to 35 people and more at some points. I was acutely aware of just what it would take to deliver like a great collection and to all those needs, but also in a way that was, and we use this word a lot, but sustainable, in a way that kind of gave back to a company and the people working in it. So you mentioned there, how did my dance experience come into play? I guess what I would say is it was the discipline, because we at college the day started at 8 and we finished at 6, and I worked an evening job and weekend jobs to pay my fees, and ballet class at 8 in the morning. It takes some dedication and discipline. So I would say, not only in terms of the creative, which is a very obvious point, but the creative exploration that you go through when working in this way definitely lent into that. But I also, I'd like to sort of say that, yes, kind of the self-discipline required to kind of to drive that career was really added to this experience, as the founder and director of a business, but also, I am the hands that and the mind today that's kind of putting this whole project together. So you have to push through. There's challenges, and it requires some discipline just to keep on going. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. But I guess starting a business in fashion today is one of the most difficult thing ever. I'm sure people are telling you are completely crazy to start a fashion brand at this time of the history because of this new model, this sustainability, this overproduction, etc., etc. Taking the into account what's going on right now and the era we are living in, how did you design this brand in terms of creative direction, but also in terms of model? How do you work? Are you into wholesale? You are direct to consumer. You are. How do you name yourself. Are you a DNVB? Are you a creative brand? This is this kind of question I want to dig into.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question, and I would I'm going to be very annoying and answer. It's all of those things, but actually, in more detail, I guess it's certainly a creative brand. Like we really are a hub for experimentation in a way. And that's I've again being the organizing businesses and studios and calendars and all these elements for the last sort of 10, 15 years, I'm acutely aware of like the timeline and what's required. And obviously also sometimes how little time and space there is for experimentation and creativity when obviously there's just need for product and deliveries and drops and these things. So first and foremost, it was to make sure that we always had enough time and space to develop and create. So to kind of remove myself from this kind of 4-season calendar and, our first collection isn't spring, summer, autumn, winter. It's just collection one. And the wardrobe today, and I'm sure there's lots of merchandisers out there that would disagree with me, but the wardrobe, people wear clothes as they want to wear them. Not that I don't believe in seasons, because of course you need things for certain times of the year, but people wear clothes in their own way now, and I'm just I felt like rather than trying to fit into very specific commercial needs, we wanted to just offer a range of product for sure, in being relevant to the time of year. So making sure we've got enough light things and so on and so forth when we're in that spring, summer mode, when people are thinking about shopping that way. And then when we put some heavier pieces when it's cold, but I'm not intending to deliver an autumn winter drop of Dadoon and heavy wool coats in August or July when most of the winter drops arrive, when actually no one's really, certainly in the climate where I live in London and when I was in Paris, and it's not really getting cold now until December, January. So why don't we just offer it then and keep it exciting then, rather than, so there was that thinking for sure. And also the idea in terms of the brand building, today we're just, and for this collection one, we're just direct to consumer. And actually so we built a great website, worked with some wonderful people, made some really exciting imagery. But the idea really behind that was twofold. Firstly, just because it gave us the opportunity to kind of to manage things closer. We obviously a new company. Yes, I know many things I've learned over the years, but there's also lots of things I don't know, which I'm sure I'm going to learn through this process. And the second reason was lots of the parts of the collection, there's lots of handmade things. There's lots of things that are very slow to make. There's lots of things that don't necessarily lend themselves to the traditional timeline. And also there's lots of things that we were experimenting on with lots of upcycling and repurposing. I know all too well the delivery windows for stores, and obviously the QC quality control, and that's something we wanted to. That was obviously a given that we would maintain this. But I guess with all of these new practices and kind of new systems that I was setting up, we really are trying some brand new things here with how we repurpose. And I mean, other people are definitely doing wonderful work with this, but in the studio where we are, the idea really was to just give ourselves this first collection for trial and error to see if we can actually industrialize some of these systems that we were trying to take found knitwear and found pieces and recut them and repurpose them and dye them and print them. And so, I mean, it's been actually, the funny thing is it's been very, very successful, and we probably could have gone to wholesale directly with this first collection. But irrespective of that, so we are looking to get wholesale partners, of course, because as a business, we need to grow. I would love to kind of get some more support in the studio, and to do that, we would need to increase our sales. But it's also just doing it, considerately. I'm not trying to create thousands of units. The fundamental point of this brand is to create meaningful pieces that people can kind of covet and share. And so each one of those has a story. I won't go through them with you today because we'll be here for hours. But yeah, so really the idea was collection one, go slowly, and then we're going to see how things pan out for sure.
Cool. Over the last few years, talking with a lot of people in the industry, I realized that being sustainable, there is several definitions of being a sustainable brand. What is your definition of sustainability? How do you make sure you are at the maximum of in terms of sustainability in your brands?
That's again a really good question. I think, for me and us here at Denzel Patrick, it's complex, of course, and I'm sure it's the same for many people. But of course, first and foremost, of course, it means the way in which we're sourcing, of course. So let's think about that for a second. How can we make sure that we are doing the best we can with the materials that we're using to create? Because of course, as we know, that's one of the biggest issues that we have to contend with. And so first and foremost, we kind of put a few credentials and like almost a manifesto together to kind of something like a baseline that we want to adhere to as we navigate this launch and the seasons to come. And that is with any, we're sourcing lots of surplus fabric stocks across different suppliers. Do you mind if I quote a few, or is that okay?
Yeah. Go ahead, please. Yeah. Please.
So there's just a wonderful fabric agent in London here called Andrew Moss that I've worked with since the beginning of my career. And I went to him and, just said, this is my mission. And if you think about it, in many ways, it's almost the antithesis of what this is about. His business is to sell more fabrics and to create more work across his database. But in fact, he's very contemporary and and understood this and all of his mills now, because the mills are shifting and changing. And of course, we still need new and innovative fabrics. We don't need just a constant supply of surplus stock, but the reality is that is there. So it's about finding a balance between the two. So with Andrew, he introduced me to a wonderful supplier called Fabric House, and these guys, what they do essentially is go around to the mills across Europe and just collect up loads of leftover fabrics, in essence. And they have a huge infrastructure that allows them to kind of cater to all business sizes and models. So they have, thousands upon thousands of certain qualities and other things you can buy up to just 1 meter. So it really is I believe they've got a very, very kind of modern and quite sci-fi warehouse. So these guys, from them, I kind of buy lots of the fabric. And so with those, you have to understand your numbers at the beginning. So it's understanding when you put something in, what you can make in the end. Where this isn't an endless, I can't just make thousands and thousands of them should customers want that. That's not the point. We design knowing what our final number is. So it really allows us to kind of create either special pieces or things that are more simplified. And then, of course, on top of that, there are new fabrics. I work with printers in Italy, Achille Pinto. With them, I'm using a recycled polyester, which is in essence a virgin fabric, but made from recycled materials. It's certified. I know I'm aware that there are concerns and a few opinions around the use of recycled polyester and its origins. And of course, I have no doubt that this is a conversation that we're going to have to continue to have. But I guess what we can only do today is be really honest and transparent and say these are our intentions, and hope as the rhythm builds up across these things that there is very clear and honest production. I'm assured that the mills I'm working with, having worked with them for 15 years, are sourcing and creating in the best way. Also working with another printer's called Lisa, and they've got GOTS cotton, and this is another not issue, but this is another discussion point, because I'm well aware of the GOTS certification requires you to obviously requires a complete a certification of the supply chain, from farm to warehouse, if you like. And I think that's brilliant. But of course, today as a new startup business, just having very few hands in. We don't necessarily have the infrastructure today to be able to execute the full breadth of that certification. I've visited the factories. I've visited the warehouse. I am confident that everything is being done in the best way possible. But of course, so what we do with our GOTS cotton, I'm making the customer aware that it's GOTS from a fabric sourcing and weaving and printing point of view, but we're not putting the label on because we're not ready for that certification today. We don't have the infrastructure to. So I think, and this is what I'm saying, is when you ask me how are we navigating that, with the best of intention, I guess, Adrian, is how we're doing it. Being really transparent. We use our website and Instagram and social media accounts to be really clear and transparent with the customer. Where there's contact emails and numbers should anybody have questions and want a little more information about the provenance. But I think that's the best thing. Not that it's one of the best things that we can do, is to ensure that we're saying these are the steps we're taking, and also we're open to be challenged and questioned and see how we can improve. And I think we could do. I know I could do 10 times more, but we would need 10 more pairs of hands to do so. So these things will just come with time, I believe. And really the other part, I guess it's kind of like a twofold. So of course, whilst thinking about sourcing sustainably, and I could, if I could go on, I have much more information I could share on that. But the other point I really want to make about the sustainability of the brand, and this is something I did take up after, my 15 years working in the industry so far, is it's about sustaining ourselves in addition to the resources, of course. And I say that because I've worked in really challenging circumstances and making more collections, working very long days and very long weeks to deliver more and more product and more ideas and more capsules and drops and collections. And of course, whilst when employed to do so, that's my job, and myself and the teams did it with the best of intention, but I would say that wasn't always sustainable, and so really a pledge that I've made to myself and to anybody who wants to be part of our community is that not only are we working tirelessly to make these clothes, make these covetable, items that we want people to cherish and collect and share, rather than think of as being a moment in their lives or wardrobes. We also want to make sure that we can sustain ourselves and sustain the business. And so that's about, like I said before, taking things slowly, being considerate, not looking for a quick win, but more about building a rhythm and a community and an understanding of the bigger picture. That, for me, is as important as the sourcing of good, transparent, and clean materials. Does that answer your question in any way?
Yeah, definitely. I've got another question for you. When it comes to building a business, building a sustainable business in terms of finance and in terms of sustainability as well, there's always not an issue, but a topic about ambition. Starting a business, I guess when you start a business, you want to grow something quite small or quite big. And I would like to have your opinion on this. Where do you want to bring this to bring this brand? What is your ambition, your objectives, and how much is your sustainability part of this business is ambitious as well. When we talk with Patagonia guys, their mission is to save the world. Us as a young brand, as a small brand, where we should put our ambition when it comes to sustainability and when it comes to business as well.
That's a good point. I guess where I'm at with that, when I started Denzel Patrick, and actually it's still very much this today. Of course, today the reality is that the business is now moving and functioning. So it's less, there's a little less time for kind of open-ended thinking. But when I started, I was really thinking of Denzel Patrick as a kind of lab, if that makes sense, as a workshop, as a practice, because what I really wanted, and in fact, and I still want it today, but there's only so many things we can, there's only so many fights we can take on in one day. But what I really wanted actually based on my learnings, again, from my roles inside other companies, was I kind of thought I would love to create and demonstrate a best practice, a way of working in which we can create new ideas, innovative ideas, relevant ideas, things that still kind of that hum and vibrate with contemporary ideas today. Like we could sit alongside our peers. But the idea was to create a lab and so almost a framework that I could almost then share with our larger companies that, understandably, we're talking about companies that have millions, hundreds of millions of euro and pound turnover and dollar even. And so I understand that sometimes it is hard to pick that apart and it is hard to make those shifts and changes. I've been inside those companies. I know it's not easy to do that because there's lots of other things to consider. Of course, what I'm doing today, in a way, it's almost easier because I'm creating it from the ground up. So when I started, the idea, and it's something I still want to do, and talking about it here with you and in other ways is we're going to get there. But it was to create a best practice that we could then share with other companies and say, hey, listen, of course, there's still, in one sense, you need to build your runway, you need to build the collection, and we still need that hub of ideas. It's still so important to have that clean and very pure practice to arrive at new ideas. But of course, as we know, the stores and the market, the market does, the market does require and ask for more ideas and more products. These are global industries. So for me, it was more like sort of saying, okay, why don't we just break these things down and look at them in different sections? So of course, we still need that top tier innovation, and we still need our mills and suppliers to think of new products and to weave new ideas. And I don't think the idea is to get rid of any of those things. Of course, we need to think about them better and make them more efficient and with less waste. But on top of that, it occurred to me that, when there's needs for capsules or drops and these things, which of course that's how the market's responding today. People kind of want that excitement, but I think there's definitely new ways to think about it. I don't think we need to look at the old way of creating clothing collections for these for the other tiers of the business. And that's why coming in here, for example, one part of my one capsule we've got coming up later on this summer is repurposing a British RAF shirt. So it very simple. We managed to source the raw materials. We're given these with a supplier we found in the north of England. We have boxes of these shirts, and they need a new life, and they're in. So it's a decided number. We know how many we're working with, and the challenge is to find ways with the materials that we have around us is to bring newness. So I think. Yeah, I'm coming full circle here. My objective was really I don't intend to have this be a €1 trillion business. I intend for it to be sustainable, for us to be able to make and produce enough moments and ideas and pieces to give back to the business to keep us going, but also to see this as a hub of ideas where we can trial new and different ways of kind of using up existing materials, thinking differently about the way that we do use new materials. It's really that, and I understand today that those are challenges that larger businesses have because of the rhythm and the pace at which they're working. Does that make sense, Adrian? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for your answer. So my question was about denim. I would like to know how you tackle this material and how you decided to work with this material at Denzel Patrick.
Okay. So actually we work with denim in with two processes, actually. The first is with a wonderful, wonderful family-run factory in Italy. That I've worked with on a few projects previously for over the years. And so the idea there was, of course, as we know very well about the impact of denim on the environment and the very, very, the water waste, the water pollution and so on and so forth. So I guess it was a tricky one. I kind of thought to begin with, I was apprehensive about actually tackling it to start with. And then I thought, well, no, if we really lean into this and think about it as a lab and a conversation point, I think it's almost better that we start thinking and getting people to kind of have a point of view on this and certainly on what we're producing. So the idea here was really just and having visited the mills for so many years, there's just the most insane stocks of fabrics, of course, because the nature of ordering for very large customers is that there's always a 5% or 10% tolerance. There's always this excess that comes with orders. And then, of course, after you've ordered, if there's a few cancelled styles, lo and behold, you have more fabric. So firstly, I didn't, with a business the size of Denzel Patrick today and our intention in terms of the market, there was absolutely no need to order and any new denim. So no weaving, no dyeing. There was enough. I believe there was enough in this warehouse for us to service this season and the seasons to come, and also to kind of lean into the idea of it being more collectible and covetable, of course, because it's not that we're going to find ourselves with one standard quality denim and just run it for 10 years. It's the very opposite of that. That we have a style, we have a shape, and of course we edit and we make a good selection. We're not just picking anything. There's a huge library there. So the idea with denim was to create from this surplus stock all of our hardware, and the threads are all recycled threads from Gutermann. The hardware is all nickel free with no washing and no treatments, just all raw. So again, to try and reduce the water waste in creating that. But the main point, I guess, was that we didn't want to wash the denim. So that was a really, really important aspect, that we weren't going to put in any heavy processing, any sandblasting and so on and so forth, that we just wanted to deliver the denim to the customer, and then also to give the customer information and say, listen, this is what we've done. So lo and behold, as we know, when we all buy a pair of new kind of raw jeans, quite often you need to give them either a rinse or a wash, and there's always a bit of color transfer. But also from a creative standpoint, I just thought they looked nicer. Like, personally, I always prefer jeans, the way that they wash down as you wear them. They're kind of more individualistic. They kind of fit to the wearer. I see loads of kids at the moment wearing with their jeans with the kind of the rubbing of their iPhone. You have the kind of the imprint of the iPhone in the front or back pocket. And we just wanted to give space for the wearer to make them their own. So no pre-washing, no designs with whiskers and these things. Just a very clean but a really strong shape. And the shape is obviously our point of view. We've really developed a very specific style there. But like I say, it's more, in addition to just delivering the product, they obviously arrive with swing ticket with lots of information, encouraging the customer to, as we all know, to wash their denim as little as possible, because it wears better that way. But when they do, to either use color catchers, these things, and it's a kind of a product that we link through onto the website, where any runoff can just be caught, not only to save any other clothes should you want to wash it that way, but also to stop the color running into the waterways. So yeah, that was the initial take on denim. And then the other take was, of course, we have which we just featured in a music video. Actually, we had a very exciting moment for us. But we have some upcycled denim, which we saw. There's just so much of it, right? Like, we all know this. There's really cool vintage denim. There's loads of stores around the world where you can go and buy great fits, and so. But actually, in addition to all of those, there's lots of pieces that aren't perfect, and so they're not really good enough to go into those stores today and kind of have this hand cherry picked kind of vintage pieces. There's all of that stock that still needs some love, and it's still great shape. It's still a great quality. It still has a wonderful kind of color to it after years and years of wear. So the idea was to try and to pick those out and kind of offer those to the market. And we did that through. So obviously we took them, we did some repair to kind of clean up any holes or tears. We removed and recycled all of the existing hardware and applied our new nickel-free unwashed hardware. And we've got these vegan back patches, the jacqueron that we developed. And then just to kind of to give them a sense of ownership and a really exciting new reason to be as such, we printed them. So we found a wonderful supplier, also in Italy, in fact, who are able to garment print on top of finished denim. So yeah, we did for the first season, we've got this great diamond print that we worked into the collection. So they come in multiple colors, and they're great. They just become a brand new idea of denim, and it's of course it's still quite niche. It's not for everyone. And that also speaks to what we're doing with Denzel Patrick. We're trying to keep things quite, I guess, just as special. These special pieces that you would want to collect, and there's a reason to buy them. So yeah, and I'll tell you, that's also a process. Sourcing, I have been on many weekends, been up to my neck in containers of denim, kind of going through as part of the sorting process. And it does take a lot more, it's definitely not as easy as just, in fact, if this makes any sense, Adrian, it would be easier for us to just make from scratch this very end product. Do you know what I mean? I could sit and do a tech pack and send it to a factory and create exactly what we've ended up with, but just using new materials, and which of course just doesn't serve the point. So for sure, and so these are the steps I was referring to before, where we just wanted to kind of refine those for first season and understand really how much time is required, how efficient or non-efficient that process is. And actually, it was very efficient. We've managed to find a great supplier who can keep us going with this upcycled denim.
Of course. Speaking about your clients, I would like to know who are your clients and how they receive this, and why are they attracted by your brand, by the way you are doing things, etc. How they are reacting to everything you do in terms of sustainability, in terms of fashion, etc. That would be my last question before moving to the quick rapid fire question part.
Okay. I guess. Well, but what's exciting is we're really still discovering the customer. It's so varied, and even for me, I'm always still surprised by the locations. We've had sales around the world, which has been exciting for sure. And obviously I arrived at this with quite a humble beginning. I kind of just the very first sale blew me away. I couldn't believe we sold one thing, one of those things. And so since then, it's just been more and more exciting, and to see the cross section. Both, we are a menswear brand, but we the way people dress today is more fluid, and so we, in our lookbook, we featured some of the pieces on a girl because I felt like it could definitely appeal to that. So we have had female customers, we've had male customers, we've got customers in Japan, in North America, in Europe, of course, in the UK, and I think one thing that does tie them all together, probably two things. Certainly the sustainability, because I think lots of those customers have come back with questions about some of the sourcing parts, which has been really exciting to be challenged and to answer those. But also very much the idea that what we're creating are kind of quite individual and special pieces. So they're hearing the message about this is an item that you're buying to kind of own and to covet and to eventually share, maybe pass it to your kids or to a friend, or to, the idea that this is just a very much a one-off piece. We are pretty much, the collection is the nature of the making of lots of these pieces. It's about 50% one-offs, if you like. There are some things that are industrially produced in a very, very clear and transparent way, but there are 50% are made in ateliers and workshops and studios up around the UK and in Italy and in Europe, but they're done one at a time. So whilst we have disclaimers and these things that I became all too familiar with in previous lives, where you have to explain to the customer, please don't panic, you will see differences between this garment and the one next to it on the rail, all this kind of thing. And I'm actually trying to celebrate that. I'm saying to you, that's the very reason to come and buy it. It's not going to look like the other one, because each one of these pieces is made by hand by one or two people. And I think that's what so far our customers are really responding to, the idea that they have something kind of touched by the hand, and it has a more emotional connection.
Of course. Great. So cool. So let's move to the quick rapid fire question. What do you want to close the door to in our industry?
I want to try and close the door to the excess ordering. This idea of just filling the gaps. This just quite often, again in previous lives, I've seen lots of selling and ordering, not only manufacturing lots of excess to meet the minimums and to hit the good numbers, to get the good make price. But of course, you're always left with 10 or 15% stock that nobody needs, And of course, from a maths point of view, I understand all of those numbers, but it just always shocked me to see that all of these items and these clothes and these pieces made with no intention. And I just think that could be something. We still need to make clothes. People want clothes. It's such an exciting thing, it makes people feel great. I just don't think we need to consciously make the pieces that we don't intend to do anything with. That's something that I think I'd like to see a shift on.
Okay. Where do you look at to get inspired? Do you look at in any other industry? And how do you stay ahead of the game in this fashion industry?
I guess I'm obsessed with architecture, with textiles, photography, but I'm also, I guess, in terms of me personally and Denzel Patrick, it's a very, very personal journey. So I spend a lot of time kind of, I guess, looking through, certainly old photo albums. I'm obsessed with the clothes that my parents wore and that their parents wore but also just everything that's around me. Southeast London is just such a melting pot of so many different cultures and religions and people and walks of life. It's really rich. And so I spend a lot of time just snapping people and things on my iPhone and kind of embracing all that is around me. Actually, and I feel like that is my quite unique point of view. I could tell you about my obsession with Ettore Sottsass and 80s Memphis, the Memphis movement, but ultimately it just comes from something much more personal for me. It's just about kind of the clothes I see people wearing and how we kind of rethink about those and how we could repurpose them and recolor them almost. So I look quite close to home rather than too far away. I hope that makes sense.
All right. Yeah, definitely. What is the last piece of clothes you bought?
The last piece of clothing I bought was a leather jacket that I got from. There is a clothing sorting, warehouse not far from my studio where we go to buy lots of our surplus jersey and fleece and so on, the garments that we cut up and repurpose. And on one particular trip, I was again knee deep in lots of this clothing, and I discovered this little gem. Obviously, it's old. It feels like it's from the late 70s, and it was ridiculously cheap considering how wonderful it is. So that was the last piece of clothing I bought.
All right. And last but not least, who is the person you would like to listen to in this podcast?
I guess I would like to listen to, maybe one of the CEOs of one of the big brands. I won't name names because it's not a pointing fingers, but I'd love for someone to be from one of the big companies to be brave enough to come in and share like the real intentions and how they kind of see. And how they see their company or the brand or the group or whoever it is that they're taking care of shifting and being ready for the next 50 years. We've got a lot of work to do. So I'd love to hear what they've got to say on that. All
right. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Take care and good luck for Denzel Patrick. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast till the end. If you want to support this initiative, subscribe on whatever podcast platform you follow. Just click on the subscribe button, rate it 5 stars, and leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to share the podcast on your favorite social media. Thank you for listening to Smart Creation, the podcast, an invitation to explore the potential of sustainable fashion.